Hey, 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 hey. Okay.
Okay, so are we live?
We are live.
Excellent. Okay. So, Texageddon. Oh boy.
Do we want to start right now? Or?
Yeah. No, we're starting. So, yeah. Denise, have some more wine. It's good.
It's a little early, so I'm just making sure.
Anyway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, Texageddon, I need a drink of wine before I talk about that. Okay, so here's the thing. Why do I call it Texageddon? Well, when I arrived in Texas, it's probably somewhat akin that if you live in Southern California, it's probably somewhat akin to, your friends from Michigan came out and, at the same time there's a fire and an earthquake. And then they went, what the hell are we doing here? And, went happily back to Michigan and said, we'll take our ice and stuff like that. Anyway, Texas. I started driving out to Texas. The reason being is Lisa and I have a house there as well now. I started driving out to Texas shortly before what Texas started calling the Big Freeze. And by bad timing, consider that if I left about an hour earlier on the second day, I probably wouldn't have had my car stuck for 10 days, 4 hours away from Corpus Christi in Junction, Texas, which is definitely in the middle of nowhere. But anyway.
Well, what happened to the car?
Lots and lots of ice. Essentially, I started out the second day. It's like a 2-day drive, if you drive like 10, 11 hours a day. And I was relocating a car. So it made, that part made sense. So anyway, I get to the, first place, I get to El Paso, no problem. I head out in El Paso early in the morning. And, it gets cold from El Paso to, to Corpus Christi. And I wasn't really concerned about that because I heard, there's a storm coming, but it's tomorrow. So, kind of who cares. I knew there was trouble when I was going over one of those bridges that say, bridge may ice in cold weather. Yeah, they ice. And the car was like sideways, and then it was sideways again, and it was sideways again. And, I'm like, oh, okay, so better slow it down and, poke along. And everything went fairly good until it started raining. Started raining with it 18 degrees outside. Brian probably knows what happens when that happens, but as a Californian, yeah. I'm like, I had an idea. It's like, this is probably very much not good. And yeah, it wasn't, because within about half an hour, you're looking at 3 inches of slush and frozen shit all over the road. And I'm driving a car with 305 section rear tires. And it's not really wanting to go anywhere. So after passing a couple people literally in a ditch, and then struggling to get up a hill at all, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pack it in. I'm gonna do the safe thing. I got off in Junction and got a motel room, and called Lisa and said, hey, Lisa, you want to close on the house tomorrow? You probably need to come pick me up. So luckily she did, and to put some context to that, she drives a Jeep Wrangler. It didn't have any problem getting up there, didn't have any problem getting back, even though we had to go through the center median of the freeway because they closed down I-10. Sorry, I had a California moment there. It's not freeway, it's I-10. They closed I-10, so we had to go through the median, down 83, and get out of what I was calling the zone of destruction, because I figured, oh, here's the ice storm, we're good, this is now over. It's wonderful. So we get there the next day, sign the papers, everything's good, everything should be fine. Well, that's like Friday. Saturday is when it really started actually hitting. And it started getting really cold, like as in, 20 degrees or so in Corpus Christi, which is literally on the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then they're talking about rain, they're talking about snow, and they're talking about like maybe snow on Monday, and everyone's kind of excited about that. And again, I'm not worried until on Sunday, the power went out. And the power went out, and it stayed out. It stayed out actually for 4 days. It was 7 degrees on Monday morning. It was 13 degrees, I think, on Tuesday morning. the water went out on Tuesday because everyone's pipes froze. Because again, they're not prepared for this kind of stuff, you know. And so we're in our house with no furniture, no, you know, pretty much no utensils, a couple of bowls, no food, no power, and no water. You know, welcome to Texas. That's Texageddon. And despite that, we actually, you know, we stuck it through. I only complained a lot. And eventually we did get a hotel room so we could actually stay warm, because we were literally driving around the Jeep, you know, trying to stay warm and stuff like that, and running the gas stove off and on. You know, not enough to get carbon monoxide poisoning, but it was a really interesting introduction. And all the locals are kind of like, oh, this never happens. Never happens, never happens. And I'm like, okay, so let's quantify never happens. Because, you know, I can say, well, the fires almost never come up to our fence in California except for twice, which freaks them out. And they said, well, you know, when we have one of these events, we get like these cold-stunned sea turtles. And, you know, you get 20 or 30 of them in a year. And I'm like, so how many this year? And they're like, 12,000. Like, oh, okay, so this never happens. They're like, right, this really never happens. And the thing is, by Thursday, you know, power was back on, things were looking better. You know, the water boil notice was lifted over the weekend, and then things became fairly normal. In fact, the weather was great. You know, it was 60s and 70s and sunny, and you know, it was actually quite nice. Very much like here in Southern California, except wetter. You know, they have a lot higher humidity, and everything's, you know, very flat there. So, but that was our intro to Texas. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. You know, we got to swap some stories with some locals about various disasters, you know, like our earthquakes and our fires. And they're like, we don't want any of that. And I'm like, you know what? Not big on this ice storm thing either. And they're like, oh, that's not bad. It's usually hurricanes. I'm like, oh, that's supposed to be comforting. They're like, oh, yeah, you probably want to stay maybe through a Category 1 just to say you stayed here through a hurricane. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to be up in the hill country drinking wine the minute I hear there's a hurricane coming. They're like, no, Category 1's no big deal. Just Category 3 and above you worry about. I'm like, yeah, still going to be in wine country, still not going to be here. Because, no, I'm good. You know, still got the California house. Now we got another house with other disasters. Oh, fun, you know. I'm sure lots of people are laughing at it. It's like, hey, what do you got? Tornadoes? You got fires? You got what do you got? I don't know. I'm sure everyone has something stupid about where they live, and that's Texas's. But I should probably talk about why we're actually in Texas and why it matters at all. Because people are probably going, that's nice, you know, now you're in Texas too, who cares? Where's my stuff? I'll get to where's my stuff. But the reason we're in Texas is actually business expansion and business segmentation. As of now, we actually have a production facility set up and slated to go online on the 22nd of this month, meaning we have hired a bunch of people there. We've brought a couple people out, and they're about ready to get started making magnes and motis. And eventually, probably everything, you know, of that size, maybe up to magnes and motis. We'll see how it goes. But we're going to start making a ton of magnes and motis. That will help alleviate the backorder situation, not just on that, but on everything, because then that lets us concentrate in Valencia on the more complicated products. We can make more Vidars and more Asiers and more Freyas and stuff like that, because now we can, you know, create some teams that actually team build them rather than, you know, one guy sitting there, let's face it, kind of miserably, you know, twisting all the wires and doing all the, you know, kind of handwork, you know, associated with those kind of products. The reason we located in Texas is, you know, there are many reasons. Of course, you know, economically, you know, it's better. It's also economically better for a lot of people buying from us in the United States because it's a more central shipping location. It also is, you know, kind of a neat town. Corpus Christi has got a lot of potential, and I know if anyone's from Corpus Christi, you're probably tired of hearing that. But it seems to finally be gelling. And in fact, one of our strategic partners, the guys who actually make our PC boards, and another strategic partner, the guys who actually buy our parts, buy and warehouse our parts, are getting together to do a joint venture in Corpus Christi to warehouse our stuff and do PC boards. So that's huge. That means we will literally have someone right next to us where we're their primary customer. That will also help alleviate our back order situation, which is huge and painful. So essentially, Texas allows us to take the line and go, okay, the simpler products, the smaller products, let's go ahead and make those here in Texas. And the more complicated products, let's keep them in California, where a lot of people have been building them for a long time, and they just really need more help. I mean, heck, I'll just put this out there. We're actually looking for a tech right now. So if you know anyone who wants to apply, for a technician job, oh my God, Cameron needs some help, and we'll be moving other people into these teams, team building type of thing there. And the most important thing is no one in California is losing their job. No one in California is being forced to move. We have 3 or 4 people who have chosen to move to Texas, but that's it. I mean, we're essentially doing a business expansion without, closing down California, without telling people, oh, you got to go to Texas or any of that kind of stuff. Everyone's still with us. It's just a question of where they want to be. Some people like Texas, some people like California. And like I said on HeadFi, there are great things about every place. Texas got a certain flavor some people like. California's got a certain flavor other people like. I happen to like both. I actually really like the food in Corpus Christi. I like that they have really silly things like belt sander racing, and I like California, mainly because it's familiar. I've lived here a long time. The town is nice, and it has a lot of what we need to have a successful business. For people that are crapping on California, it's like, go try to find, consumer level manufacturing. Go try to find, PC board houses that aren't, all, either doing, industrial controls or aerospace. It's not that easy. And so that's why we're actually pretty thrilled that some of our guys are coming along for the ride in Texas. And that's why Texas is important. More capacity, more flexibility should allow us to answer the next question, which is, where's my shit?
So it'd be a recurring segment. I was thinking, like, where's my shit? Where's my shit? Where's my shit?
It's horrible. I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. I mean, our back orders are terrible now. Though, I do believe we'll be able to finally start clearing out the hell back orders soon. Anyway, but the back orders are horrible. The fact that we've only recently been able to allow distributors to order a limited subset of our products, and it still isn't the full line, is horrible. I mean, no one wants to be in this situation. No one wants to say, no, I can't sell you something. The reality is that's kind of what we have right now. What's really interesting is I figured actually, I was talking to Tyler today. Tyler's the guy that runs all the finance kind of stuff. And I figured, we'd be, this year wouldn't be doing so well because we're in such deep back order. We actually we're doing better than last year despite the back order, which is completely insane, because last year we're coming off of 2019 where we overbuilt everything. We had almost everything in stock. We could fulfill everything, and and sales were going up, I guess, due to people being stuck in their homes. And now it's bigger. And I'm like, how is this even possible? How do we ship this many products? And the answer is at great pain and suffering. We have a big line. Things will actually continue to go out of stock for many reasons. One is it is impossible to predict surges like this. I mean, if I told you with a straight face, 2 years ago, well, you're probably going to have to be planning for 9 or 10 times the size of runs that you're doing now. I'd be like, yeah, that's funny, that'll never happen. Well, it happened, and that's kind of what we're doing now, and we'll see if that actually clears out or if it gets worse. because it seems like whenever we raise production, it actually jumps higher than that. That's our problem. You know, we'd like to be able to take care of that, but it's you know, it's very, very hard. Like I said, you can't plan for it. You can only react to it, and hopefully we're reacting in the right way. The other thing is we're getting a lot of surprises. I mean, you know about one of the surprises, the AKM factory burned down in I believe it was November. That put 5 new product developments on our plate, you know, just so we could have something for when we run out of AKM chips. And those are done, everything's ready. It's not going to interrupt, you know, any production flow, but you might, you know, see some new products using different, you know, different DACs near the end of the year. That was one surprise though. We are getting a lot of other surprises, like the components we use. Sometimes they're coming in a little different than they have in the past. You know, the bias on our amplifiers isn't quite the same because the parts are slightly different. So we have to watch every run. We have to make sure everything really is in spec. We need to make sure that what we're shipping to you, you know, is a good solid product, and we have to look at more parts than we have in the past. Plus, some parts have just gone completely insane as far as the lead times. Our cardboard went from like 4 weeks to 65 weeks in some cases. It's like, how do you even quote someone with a straight face 65 weeks? You know, that's over a year. And honestly, that's not as bad as some things. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with scaling up. We're dealing with maintaining quality while scaling up. We're dealing with that without raising prices, and I think that's actually, it's worth mentioning. It's at a time like this, it's super tempting to go, fine, you know, Magnies are $150, let's see how that goes. You know, fine, you know, Asgards are now $300, let's see how that goes. It's super tempting, you know, when demands like this, but we don't believe in that. We believe in pricing things at a rational, you know, multiple of what we actually make them for, and our prices haven't changed. You know, our production prices haven't changed that much, so we're not going to do that. If we add more features or things like that, that's a whole different ballgame. But you know, we're going to hold, we're going to stay, and we're going to see how it goes. And so I apologize if things have been late. I apologize if things have been back order. I apologize if we haven't been able to stock the distributors as well as we should. But we're trying to fix that. And in fact, the distributors now have a single point of contact where we can at least keep them informed. And I do believe we'll start making, you know, headway, if not this quarter, you know, early next, and then by summer, hopefully, it'll be nearly, you know, nearly taken care of. That's where your shit is. It's in a world of hurt. Is where it is.
So recently you guys did an announcement for the Loki Mini Plus. Loki Mini Plus. Can you tell the guys a little bit about that and maybe why it's called the Mini? And maybe why it's called the Plus now too?
That's a good question. Okay, to be super pedantic, Plus is what we throw on anything that we have improved, but haven't changed the feature set. So if you say got an Asgard 3 Plus, which by the way is not a thing, but if you got one, it means it would be exactly the same as Asgard 3, have the same switches, same everything, but it'd be better. So Loki Mini Plus is the better version of Loki Mini. And by better, I mean it's got lower distortion, lower noise, and the bands, actually the Q of the bands, the steepness of the bands has been kind of optimized to work better with the 4-band design. Other than that, it's still a 4-band equalizer. It still has a bypass switch, so it's a plus. Mini though, yeah. We stuck Mini on there when we first introduced it because I figured we might end up with a line of these things. You know, we'll see how it goes with Loki. And Loki Mini was successful enough that, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have a line of equalizers. There was one problem with our grand plan of having a line of equalizers when I introduced Loki Mini, which was neither of the other two that we were looking at worked right. So Brian, you probably would agree that's a bit of a problem.
A little bit. What I did have one other question for you about the Loki though is what is your belief about the equalizer in general? Because some of the purists, the audiophile purists, think it's like totally evil stuff. Where do you guys kind of sit on that? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people that really love it. Is that just the minority you think that's on the outskirts, or?
I don't know. I think it's becoming more mainstream. When I introduced the original Loki, if you're really bored and you want to look up that chapter, I actually rewrote the first 10 of Martin Luther's 95 Theses to apply to equalizers, because it had become dogma that you don't use equalization. You don't have bass and treble. It's you have to preserve the sacred original recording. Well, that's great, but you know what? A lot of my recordings suck. So the sacred original ain't all that great, especially a lot of the 80s stuff where I guess they forgot the bass. It's like, there's bass there, dude. Where's the bass? So they kind of left that out. There's that. There's also, let's face it. Is your room perfect? Your speakers, are those perfect? Your headphones, are they perfect? If anyone says yes, please, I'd love to hear them. Because I'd really actually love to hear perfect speakers, perfect room, and perfect headphones. Because then at least we don't have to worry about the recording, but then you still have the recording. So our position is an equalizer, whether it's software or hardware, because you can get software equalizers and a lot of stuff now for free or for a lot less. An equalizer is a tool that could be used to make things sound better. If you like it, I think you should use it. If you don't like it, I think you shouldn't use it. Full disclosure, I don't typically use a Loki Mini Plus, not because it's not transparent, mainly because I'm fairly lazy and I don't want to be worried about like, oh, should I tweak up the bass on this song and then have to bring it down for the next one. That's a totally personal thing. If things go the right way and I get to bring out the Loki Max or whatever, what the heck we call this giant crazy thing we're working on that has 6 motorized pots, and the pots aren't even used for the EQ. They're just used to indicate the position for a relay ladder that actually does the positions. If we do that, then you'll have some presets. So maybe it'll be easier. You can hit a preset and all the knobs will spin to the right position. You'll hear the relays going crazy, stuff like that. Which cynical me, I think all the knobs spinning at once and the relays clattering might sell more units than the actual sound, which is sad. But if that hits, it'll hit this year. It's got balanced in and out. It's got Nexus. It's got a bunch of stuff. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people asking about the balanced in and out as well, so that's interesting. And I did want to just comment that in response to the purist idea, which is a great idea, I'm not opposed to it. It's also, I think, noteworthy to say that at some point all music you heard was EQ'd by an EQ at some point. So it's, I can understand why people don't want to put it in their chain, but to say that all EQ is pure evil seems a little bit short-sighted because everything's been EQ'd at some point or another to get there.
Yeah, and it may have been EQ'd by an equalizer using 30 to 50, 55, 32 op amps, which aren't bad, but that's a lot of stuff. I mean, the Loki Mini has one discrete gain stage, so I do think it's quite transparent. I probably should use it. I have a lot of headphones that could really use it. And in fact, I'll remember to bring one back to Texas with me, because people have said, what did you bring to Texas? Because clearly that's probably the more important stuff. Well, hint, it's the smaller stuff, because I don't have as much space there. But I brought a Valey 2 Plus, and I brought a Modi Multibit. I did not bring a Loki. And I brought the Bifrost 2 and the Lear. Actually, don't laugh, to use with a Vidar for a 2-channel home theater, for just left and right home theater. And then I realized I should have just brought the stupid Ragnarok and used it, but hey, I'm dumb sometimes, so I'll probably take the Ragnarok out there, use that for. It's not really a home theater, just it's like it's the living room setup.
Did you get a new pair of speakers for that, or?
No, I'm gonna bring the Zoos and use those. I think they might actually be pretty good for essentially a theater application. I don't know.
I've done it. They're good. They're good.
Yeah. So.
I hope nobody thinks I'm making fun of anyone in the chat, but there is quite a few people asking about a transport update.
Wow.
Which is only slightly humorous to, I think, myself and Jason, because it's asked every week, and I totally get that everybody's excited about it, but you have a tendency to answer it every week, and I'm wondering if we need to do a musical segment, and we'll just like build it in. So you guys don't have to ask anymore. I'm trying to help you out.
If you have either Mike doing the musical number, or if we have like a Kraftwerk style robot of Mike doing the musical number, which would be even better, I think that'd be wonderful. Here, but I'll tell you what I know about the transport. I talked to Dave yesterday. He delivered the rather unhappy news that when we are assembling the transport, we will have to be fully strapped up and ESD, basically ESD safe, because apparently the transports themselves are fairly sensitive. So everyone's going to be real excited about working on that line, but it is what it is. Got to do what's right, and so that probably means we are starting to build the run of betas. There are probably people asking about betas too. I think Denise has more than 1 billion, applicants for the beta,
Yes.
but I don't know. Denise just said yes.
Yes, we do. We have quite a few people that want to beta
Yeah.
the transport.
And we'll see. That does need an actual real beta test,
Yes.
and then we'll be able to release it.
Right. So we'll be letting you know about that as soon as we get word from Mike
Yeah.
that he's ready.
Yeah, I know we have boards, I know that we have parts, I know that we're probably assembling them, and then we have metal, so we should be able to get that out pretty soon. It'd be great to get that out in the summer, but I'm blue skying. We'll see how the beta goes. The original Unison beta, I believe, took 6 to 8 months. There were 2 rounds of beta on that. Hopefully there's less on this.
Yeah. And people are asking about the gadget, of course, with
Yeah.
and the gadget.
I'd love to sell something right now. I believe it actually all hinges on Mike's got Ivana working on a bunch of new stuff with much higher power, processors or FPGAs. So I think it hinges on that. I suspect Mike will probably, he likes to surprise me. It's like one day when I think there's no hope, he'll show up and go, "Oh, look, it's the gadget." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." So yeah, it's 5 years late, but and then he gets all irritated, and I'm like, "Well, or you can keep me in the loop." He's like, "Well, then you just complain." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's fair too."
Yeah, better to be surprised, huh? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, he kept me on the hook for Iggy for over a year. The original Yggdrasil, he gave me a intentionally broken unit, so I thought it sounded like crap, and basically let me keep that for almost a year while he did a bunch of tweaks, and then he wouldn't actually let me listen to the release one before we went to a show. So the first time I heard the release one was actually at the show when I sat down and plugged in and went, "Oh, thank God, it's good."
Oh,
Yeah.
So I heard that before you. I'm
Yeah.
honored. Because
Yeah.
I was really listening to one.
No, he was just torturing me because he knows I stress about things like that.
That's pretty funny.
So I'm like, well, I
never knew
hope
that.
someone likes the way it sounds, but no, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, this actually sounds great.
I never knew that. That's
Yeah.
a great story. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what Mike does. Yeah, I try to tell him what I'm doing, and he does what he does, which is cool. So, and I think that's probably about it. I mean, unless people have any other questions, or if there's any questions I missed, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm gonna have another glass of wine. I'm gonna be celebrating being back in California, and also going back to Texas in about 3 weeks. So they're both good. It's just different flavors. Pick the one you like.